ahead, strap in, and let's go ahead and dive right into the first topic that I am going to be talking about today. Essentially how Legion itself is going to be remembered. I do feel a lot of the gripes about Legion do kind of hold some weight. I mean, personally, I felt the expansion was very anti-alt, you could say. Not in the way of hard to level, especially once invasions came out. Once invasions came out, basically you run a character through an invasion. Every invasion you run them through seems to usually end up equating to an entire level. Oh wow, I went back down to Sewer Mars, so this guy's just kind of hiding right on the edge here. So leveling in and of itself isn't the difficult part. The difficult part I felt, or at least from my perspective, was essentially keeping up multiple alts for raiding. I'm a guy who usually likes to try to keep 2 to 3 alts, very minimum, raid ready, be able to go ahead and jump into raid whenever necessary, or even, jump into like a weekend team with one of my alts and keep going from there. I felt very strapped during Legion trying to do that, and just for the main fact of the way they made the artifact itself progress and how you had to level it up. Off the very, very start of the expansion, before they basically made us respec it after redoing their concordance, it felt kind of forced, like a forced method of progression. Now, I kind of understood Blizzard's theory behind it, the way this expansion is supposed to work out. You're supposed to get stronger as you go on to the point where you can take on Sargeras himself, which basically we didn't end up doing anyway. Take on and defeat Sargeras himself, and basically end the Legion incursion altogether. Which I also kind of felt they kind of cheaped out in how they did this as well. I kind of felt the Broken Isles itself could have been a whole expansion, especially since they wanted to throw the Emerald Dream basically into one tier, which I'm also kind of, I don't know, upset about. I don't know if upset's the right word. Bummed? I think bummed is the right word when it comes to that one, because I felt like there was enough stuff with the Emerald Dream that it could have had its own expansion, and honestly I felt like we were going to have gotten an Emerald Dream expansion after Cataclysm. I mean, that would have only made sense. But no, after Cataclysm, we all of a sudden, this is the one that's just a pain in the ass to try to do like this. After Cataclysm, all of a sudden, we find another land, we go there, whatever. I guess in the end, it kind of made sense how that one progressed. But still, I would have preferred, something more along the lines of an Emerald Dream type expansion, have it followed. Oh, what the hell? Cataclysm. But anyways, I digress. Then I also feel like Argus itself could have been a whole expansion. I feel like they just kind of cheaped out on that one too. I mean, they could have made a whole entire expansion out of that, where essentially in the end you actually do fight Sargeras and lock Sargeras away, as so the tale goes. I kind of feel that was rushed in and of itself as well. This whole expansion, I feel the way they did things, it was kind of rushed. They pushed you into, or basically forced you, if you wanted to kind of mythic raid or high-end raid, into essentially basically beefing up your stupid artifact weapon continually. Which was in and of itself a pain in the ass. To the point where it felt forced, I feel. I mean, maybe it wasn't entirely forced. Maybe it's just because I wasn't, didn't play it enough. or wasn't on enough, I should say, to actually stay up with it. But I feel it was more or less, wow, people, you're gonna leave that up when... I feel it basically forced you into continually grinding to the point you would get that last trait. The first time it was around, it was a 50-second trait, Concordance. Otherwise, you were going to be falling so far behind in raid, it was ridiculous. That part I feel like it was forced. However, once they reworked it around, we got the second set of traits. The next thing we went to here was this Concordance at 75. I don't feel like it was as forced as much anymore. Because then at that point it became this stuff, basically all your essential stuff you easily got. This essential, and getting your Stormkeepers, that was essential that you got easily within like first week of having a character is 110, because at this point now I have 5 alts that are around 110 that I have all that up in. And then this stuff, these 4 bench basically came easily as well, and then the Concordance powers, those slowed down a little bit, but it didn't feel as forced. Really, nobody's going to join in the humongous group. With the Netherlight Crucible, it gave more of a reason to do it. Why? Oh, wow. Why did I think I had to do stuff in Val-Shara? What the hell was wrong with me? We'll go see if I can do that a second time. That might help. But I mean, still all at the same time, I can kind of see why Blizzard did it. They wanted us to have something where it continually felt like we were progressing all the way through Legion and continually getting stronger outside of specifically gearing up. I mean, so I guess in a sense I understand it, but at the same time, I wish I would have went about it a different way, to the point that it didn't feel like it was so anti-alt. To the point where you needed to get your alt to that 52 if you wanted to raid with them early on in the expansion. If you didn't have that 52, I'm sorry, here SOL, your DPS and HPS and whatever isn't going to be where it needs to be, and nobody's going to want to bring that around on a group anyways. So, I mean, I felt it was a trade-off either way on that one. I mean, like I said, I understand it, but at the same time, I hate it. Now it's fairly simple to get these alts leveled up and to where they need to be for raiding, and basically so you can raid once again on multiple characters without feeling like you are behind. Even to the point where I now have a survival hunter up to 110 that I'm going to do a little bit more to gear up, and then, I mean, just for shits and giggles, raid with. I mean, because honestly, I feel survival is fun. It doesn't output as much as it should for the amount of work that you put in for it. But at the same time, I feel like the spec in and of itself is fun to play. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it got better as the expansion went on. I have a feeling the main part of Legion, unfortunately will be remembered for is the fact that it forced you into doing extra content that was kind of stupid and felt like it was pointless. One especially being all these world quests at this point. I mean, for the main fact that you felt like you had to do that for your legendary chances. Otherwise, once again, if you don't get the right legendaries, you're also once again going to be far behind. That I feel is going to be another shortcoming of Legion itself. The legendary debacle, I guess I feel like calling it. I understand, once again, or I think I know why they did it. Previous legendaries, only one spec, one class, etc. would get. Anyone outside of that was basically kind of left out to dry. Maybe they wanted to spread the love. I don't know. Either way, I still don't feel a reason as to why they did the legendaries the way they did as well. It just made for a bad situation and a bad way of working things as well, if you ask me. Maybe it wouldn't have been so bad if they didn't have all the legendaries. Some legendaries have a good DPS increasing benefit. Some of them not give you any DPS increase whatsoever, and other ones just be plain trash. Maybe if they wanted to do it where it was a legendary drop and it was a higher item level and just higher stats without an equip effect, okay. I feel the best way to have solved that would have essentially been a token drop system. When a legendary drops, instead of getting a specific legendary, you get a token. Then you take that token to a vendor and trade that token in for the legendary of your choosing. That way, you still have the random RNG chance of getting the legendary, but you don't have the random RNG chance of it being an absolutely terrible legendary that you're not going to benefit from in any sense of the word. Somehow on my alts, my druid got my BIS Boomkin ones, all three of them, the first three, IFE, bracers, and the shoulders, as my first three. Don't know how. And my Paladin, the first two I got were the best two back then, the Cape and the Lairdon's Fury. I wasn't so lucky on the Shaman. That's where I started getting frustrated. I got down to the point where I basically had three of them left, and one of those three were my boots. Basically leaving me out high and dry as a 965 Shaman, essentially in comparison to the other Shamans that we had running with us at the time. I felt like it left me out high and dry, and then I also, my mind started to work along the lines, they're lower geared than me, they're doing better DPS, now it's going to make me look like crap because I need to do more DPS because I'm higher, but at the same time they have better legendaries. What do I do? And I can almost guarantee I'm not the only one that felt that way about that system as well, that it was a forced legendary, a forced DPS increase system. I feel the easiest way and the best way that could have been solved from the outset would have been just to straight up have it been a token drop from the start. You take that token to a vendor, you trade it in, you can get whatever legendary you want. That way, you could basically get which ones you wanted, and then after that, you can just randomly select them and basically move on with your life. The random token drop for a random class after you get all your legendaries for a certain class, I also feel that might have been a little bit of a broken system. Maybe just a little bit. I feel like a better way of doing that would have been doing it the way things kind of are now. When you get your 1,000 essence, it basically lets you send that 1,000 essence that you just purchased to an alt once you have all of your legendaries on that specific character that you spotted on. I feel like that would have been a better method for the random token chance after you already have all your legendaries on one character. just so it didn't force you in a situation where, oh, I just got a random token drop, it's for a monk, my monk's only level 70, what the hell do I do now? This is pointless, I'm just gonna vendor this or delete this. In theory, I can see where they wanted to do that to help, or basically make people play other classes, but at the same time, if it drops for a class that somebody doesn't want to play or isn't playing, they're not going to play it anyways. Doesn't matter if you give them random legendary token drops for it; they're not going to touch it. Plain and simple. That I feel was one of the big shortcomings of Legion in and of itself too, was the way the legendary system ended up working out. It felt forced. It felt forced as well, if you ask me. Like it was kind of unnecessary. Like, we didn't need it to happen this way. There could have been better implementation methods, better ways of it working. I mean, I can see where they wanted the random RNG chance, so it actually felt like you got something from it and felt rewarded for it. I mean, I can understand that, but at the same time, I just feel like it could have easily been redone a better way and a better method. And I think those would have been those two different changes, while minuscule, changing the legendary system, and then the artifacts going to the system where your knowledge increased by 1 every week, regardless, where you didn't have to do the order research. I feel like that would have been a much, much better system from the outset of the expansion, and would have basically cured a lot of the main gripes that I've heard about Legion. Other than that, I mean, Legion in and of itself, I don't feel was one of the worst expansions by any means. A lot of people, rag on WoD as being one of the worst. WoD, I feel like, was just their way of trying to close the Garrosh Hellscream line and basically get him out of the picture, so they couldn't bring him back for any reasons. Garrosh Escapes goes back into time, into a completely different timeline. That fucks a whole bunch of things up, which then results in Gul'dan essentially coming back and causing Legion. In this timeline, since Gul'dan essentially then was never previously disposed of in the original timeline, if you're trying to follow the timeline of that, it just doesn't make any sense. But WoD, I think WoD was a forced expansion after something where it wasn't in essence needed, and they could have done something a little bit better. I mean, I honestly even feel like Emerald Dream would have been a good expansion there after Mop. You have Garrosh escaping off to the Emerald Dream and still having some of his Shaw power with him and corrupting it. And then maybe you could have also brought in the Void being an enemy then as well. WoD, I just feel like was a haphazard expansion. Legion, I feel like, was much better than WoD, but I don't feel like, and once again, this is entirely 100% subjective to the person. I don't feel like it was on the same level as BC and Wrath. I feel like it was, and I'm probably going to get shot a little bit for this one, but I feel like it was a little bit better than Vanilla. Vanilla, I mean, honestly, put your nostalgia aside, I personally can't find too much about Vanilla that I, am glad hasn't changed. But then, of course, that's, always how it should go, right? I mean, the first isn't necessarily going to be the best after you keep releasing more expansions, because the idea is to improve upon your product. Don't get me wrong, it's up there in my top 3, but it's not at the top of the list for me, or Wrath BC levels, personally. Like I said, I might get shot for that in some retrospects, but hey. I feel like I would put Legion kind of equating to Mob, so basically at a 4 to 5 area. Right in there with Kata. Mob, Kata, and WoD, not WoD, and Legion, I kind of feel are equivalent. Part of me wants to put Mop a little bit ahead in that in 4 and put Legion down there. Even under Cataclysm as 6, but ahead of WoD, of course, as 7. Just for the main fact that I like how things in Mob worked. I liked how things in Cataclysm worked. It was kind of an interesting retrospective how they redid a lot of the lands. I mean, I liked how the storyline flowed into those. The big knocks on Legion, as I said, are going to be the remembrance of how they worked the artifact leveling and the absolutely terrible RNG system for legendaries. That is just that I feel like that it was just a forced mechanism. Both of those that were completely and utterly unnecessary. That we shouldn't have basically been forced into having to deal with. Can disenchant that. If the legendary system wasn't so borked, if we weren't forced into feeling like we had to continually level these artifact weapons, I can see where Legion would have been a little bit higher. Still wouldn't have vaulted up too much higher at the list because I feel the storytelling was rushed. But anyways, that is enough about Legion. Let's go ahead here in about the last 5-10 minutes here to look forward into what Battle for Azeroth is going to bring for us. It's actually quite interesting. Battle for Azeroth is the big one that sticks out to mind right now, as we've learned from alpha data mining, is the removal of tier sets. Now, I'm kind of on the fence on this one. I feel like this also is a knee-jerk reaction to how tier sets ended up working out here in Legion. But really, I don't have all world creatures in Azuna. Now, whatever. I feel like that's a knee-jerk reaction to how things ended up working out here in... I haven't done my... Wow, I haven't done 15 yet. In Legion, because tier sets also had certain cohesiveness with different legendaries. So some tier sets would be stronger than newer tier sets just based on the legendaries you have. That's another little interesting tidbit. I feel getting rid of the whole legendary system would have fixed a lot of the tier issues, especially with the Ret Paladin, because then you don't have the issue where, you know, with a certain set of legendaries, your 4-piece tier 20 at base mythic item level is basically out-sims a 4-piece tier 20, 2-piece tier 21, out-sims 4-piece tier 21 until you get to like 965s, just because of the strength of that 4-piece 20 with some of the legendaries. That is going to be another downfall of Legion, is it's basically doing away with tier sets in BfA. I feel like it's a knee-jerk reaction on Blizzard's part. Their justification is saying it's going to give us more gearing options. I personally like the fact of trying to build up towards that tier set to get that 4-set bonus. You know, something we've always had in the game since the game's inception in the vanilla, which gives you another boost on top of it. Other findings showing it's basically going to be worked into our Heart of Azeroth neck that we're going to get. You know, the tier set is going to basically be pushed into that, and we're going to get different set bonuses in there. I'm on the fence. I've yet to see, you know, I want to see how it plays out, basically, before I go ahead and make any sort of conclusion or draw any sort of conclusion on that one, just because I don't want to damn something before actually seeing how it legitimately plays out. I feel like it has potential, but then at the same time I also feel like it's going to feel like there's something missing. In theory, it should make gearing easier. In theory, a lot of things, I mean, should make things easier. I don't know, it's something I'm on the fence about. I'm gonna wait to see how it plays out in BfA once we get, into seeing how it actually works in the first few raid tiers. Next thing that has been recently data mined is a complete removal of the first aid achievements. As you can see, I haven't bothered doing these ones, as well as the medic in the zone, at least on this character, for the title that you end up getting once you do all of those. First aid appears to be disappearing, or the bandages are getting put into the tailoring skill. The first aid achievements have been data mined to be under the legacy tab on our achievements in here. That's where those have been data mined to be put into. It sounds like first aid is going to be completely removed altogether. They're also redoing all the professions as well. I believe when I last looked at it, like Hunter was going to be the top level. So the current leveling system of up to 800 and now adding up a top that to 900, that's not going to be in place any longer. I mean, they're essentially getting rid of that. Profession's completely entirely reworked. Oh, what do I have the closest to a chest on this guy? Ferrandis, yeah. I almost feel like it's a long overdue change. Part of me would have liked another 100 levels for the new stuff, and I just feel like it would be easier if they did that, especially going forward. Just to keep adding on top of it, add the new stuff in without having to rescale things back down, or now you're at level 100, now you get to do basically everything from here until the end of time in the game. It's another one of those that's just kind of a little iffy on the fence about it as well. A lot of other achievements too are disappearing. Ashran is going to be made into legacy achievements. All those ones are going to bye-bye. So if you haven't gotten any of those achievements, you better hurry up and go ahead and get those ones out of the way. Those achievements are disappearing. What other achievements do we have disappearing, or quick changes for BfA? Oh, my sheet isn't loading up. There's a lot to the base game itself they're changing, but a lot that seem like it might be a good change. I personally think it's a little too soon to make a judgment on that, but at the same time, I mean, we'll essentially have to wait and see once BfA drops, or once beta even drops, and we can dive into that and see how things play out going forward into the 120. New lands, new allied races, 4 of them open up already right now. Dark Spirit Trolls and one other coming. I don't know what the Alliance side is because I've never played Alliance. I have no intention or want to play the Alliance characters. Whoops. Then, of course, people are also hypothesizing Horde will get Valpera down the line as well, added to the current allied race. But anyways, that's about a half an hour here. We're going to wrap up this episode of the Case Files. Go ahead and keep up with me down below on YouTube and Twitter. This will be definitely uploaded right up to YouTube as soon as we're done here, as well as some other videos that I do publish throughout the week. I end up trying to get one out a week, so you can definitely be sure those will show up there as well, Mythic Kills, etc. Other links down below as well for you to check out, including Patreon, Achievements Discord, and Mythic Plus Friends Discord, as well as my True Spy Gaming Discord. Go ahead and drop in the True Spy Gaming Discord. That's where any future achievement runs that I run will be posted first, and you'll get priority invite as long as you are in my channel. But until next week, when we come up with episode 008, this has been Spy Weaver here at True Spy Gaming, signing off. We shall catch you guys later.